We've got some breaking news with our political editor, Andrew Clennell. As we said, the Expenditure Review Committee has been meeting today. Andrew, you've got some details out of that meeting as to what this economic stimulus package will include.
That's right, Kieran. So the package will include hundreds of millions for health and aged care, I can reveal, as nursing homes are helped out in terms of dealing with the crisis. GPs are helped in terms of them dealing with the crisis, perhaps with screening, and in terms of care in the community. So we've already seen a commitment for $1 billion for health, and now we see this extra hundreds of millions for the aged care and health sector. Export costs temporarily axed. That's what we're going to see out of this package, I understand from my sources this afternoon, and cash payments for small businesses. So a lot of talk about how effective they'll be, I guess, yet to see if there's some sort of check and balance on there, Kieran, but there will certainly be cash payments, I'm told, to small businesses. There's also speculation, obviously, around to what Newstart recipients, pensioners and others, but certainly there's a feeling that is the most effective way to keep the economy going, to get the cash out there and get the activity happening immediately. As I understand it, the committee was told there's an expectation of this crisis lasting around 6 months. That before a bounce back, that is what the government is planning for at the moment. Those export costs are going to be axed, as I understand, despite the fact there's a feeling that China is bouncing back a little bit, that the supply chains are moving a bit better than they were a couple of weeks ago. But despite that, that tax measure will be in place. So, you know, just some of the stimulus measures that are set to be unveiled by the government. As I understand, other measures, including in the industry area, are still being worked on and won't be part of this package, Kieran.
Well, there are those details you've confirmed this afternoon, Andrew. Very interesting, because it goes to a couple of elements here, doesn't it? You've got the millions to support GPs and aged care, which is understandable given the added pressure they're facing, but confirmation from you this afternoon that they've agreed to that. On that element, that's responding to the coronavirus, the health impacts. But then on the economic side, the trade-exposed industries to get that relief through the export costs being temporarily suspended, and also confirming what we had speculated earlier but hadn't had confirmation on, and that was the money to go to small business, basically, Andrew, to try and protect jobs, to make sure they're still there.
A handout. And let's see what accountability measures, if any, whether it's tied to leave or what it's tied to, are put in place in terms of making sure small businesses don't just pocket that. But you can see they're pushing the states for payroll tax relief as well. The federal government, Queensland's done that in some sectors. New South Wales are set to do that as well. And now this cash payment, as I understand it, to small businesses in the belief that when they're really struggling, that will keep the economy going.
One of the things that the government also has to secure, I think it's fair to say, Andrew, is a consistency in terms of the message. Is it where does it sit in terms of the crisis? Should he be calming people down, the Prime Minister, or talking up the crisis? What's your view on where the government sits on that right now? Should there be a message of reassurance from the PM when he does detail that stimulus? Yeah,
well, I think so, but he's talked about modest stimulus, then substantial, Josh Frydenberg yesterday, then significant today from the Prime Minister. Obviously, a lot of people watching the Prime Minister's performance after the bushfires situation. They say in politics, don't waste a crisis. It's often good news for leaders. He's done well on the travel ban, and he's done well in terms of pressuring the banks on dropping interest rates. So this stimulus and how it's framed, which is what you allude to there, Kieran, will be keenly watched. It's not just about the policy measures in place, a lot of which I imagine are recommended by departments. It's how the Prime Minister frames this, and we've seen him talk about fears of it being worse than the GFC after saying it's not like the GFC. His performance over the next couple of days and couple of weeks will be interesting in terms of it speaks to his competence, whether or not he's a steady hand at the wheel. And I guess also he's spoken about this money that he's pushing out there being scalable. That will be interesting in terms of will the aged care sector need more down the track? If the crisis were to continue, they and GPs would. And would there need to be further cash payments where you've got an opportunity in 8 weeks in the budget for that to occur if need be. And as I alluded to earlier, I understand some of the things that have been worked on aren't quite there, but you've only got 8 weeks till the budget till you deliver those as well.
And one of the things that I know that for Scott Morrison, one of his heroes is John Howard. Something John Howard wouldn't do would be referring to governments of 12 years ago in responding to a crisis. He would take the leadership, step up and deliver. What Mr Morrison's staff need to tell him is stop referring to the Labor government of more than a decade ago, because that's not your job right now. Your job now is to be the leader, to reassure and lead the country, not to be having political cracks. I think he's got to shelve the comparisons with Rudd, doesn't he?
Yes, very good point. Although there's a good reason John Howard wouldn't have wanted to talk about governments 12 or 13 years ago, because the government 12 or 13 years before he got to power was Malcolm Fraser's government. He was Treasurer and there was a recession and high inflation, high unemployment.
Good point.
So he couldn't really refer back to that. But you're quite right. I mean, no one in the community is really thinking that hard about Kevin Rudd, you know, on this. They're just thinking about a steady hand and a firm hand to take hold of this crisis. I think there's an argument for some mention here or there, but we saw Matthias Cormann before. First thing he mentioned...
You can let others do it.
Josh Frydenberg's... Well, that's the other thing, he could. That's a very good point, and a good political tactic often, isn't it, Kieran? But Matthias Cormann saying it, Josh Frydenberg saying it, Scott Morrison's repeatedly saying it. It's time to let it go. They made the point, haven't they? They just need to get on with helping the economy and helping the community.
Absolutely. And just recapping, Andrew, before I let you go, this breaking news this afternoon, you've confirmed millions to go to GPs, to aged care and responding to coronavirus, and to provide some support on the economic front, export costs to be scrapped temporarily, and you've confirmed as well that there will be major support for small business to to help keep people in jobs.
That's right, and we'll have to look at the threshold on that. The definition of a small business is 50 million or under. Certainly that's for the instant asset write-off. That's the definition that's been used. Let's see if the government keeps to that. But some good news for small businesses when they're really struggling at the moment.